know that. But it's kind of calling out our bluff. What are we saying this is about? And I'm sorry, but I don't believe if you hire the right company who's doing the right amount of investigating that we necessarily have to wait for just the traditional markets to come back. And the only one of these, and it doesn't surprise me because it was the same thing when we were doing this 5 and 6 years ago, the only one of these bidders who is in this business to go out of business is Eureka. Everybody else needs and wants to make money at it. Their long-term goal is to not to have to be here anymore because they want to retrain everyone to reduce and reuse to the point of things that come in too much packaging just won't get purchased. If those cookies are wrapped 4 times, why the heck would you buy them? And that's a retraining process that's probably not going to all happen in my lifetime, that's for sure. But if we stop it now, we need to be honest that that's what we're doing. And I'm aware of a price differential, but I'm still willing to say we started with a really good goal, we started with a really good program. What Ginny says is true. Are we green or aren't we? Again, are we calling ourselves green? Well, that's nice. Anybody can take out a green brush. But when push comes to shove, are we? And you know, when we took on a wetland ordinance, when we took on even a tree ordinance, we were committing to a certain amount of green. And those things aren't cheap. And one of the reasons we're doing stormwater is because we'll get fined by the MPCA if we don't. The other piece is because it's environmentally sound. So are we a complete picture or aren't we? And like I said, I'm not talking about any particular company. I'm talking about what our goal is, what we got into this business for and what we want to continue to do it for. And to be quite editorial, any boob can throw everything in one pile. So don't talk about how we want to educate anymore. And I'm sorry, but I'm a little dense. I've never understood why it's so difficult, if you have the red bin, to have the bag of paper and the bag of everything else. Why is that more work? Because you wish it to be? I mean, really, let's be honest. Do we want to promote environmentally sound practices, or are we just in this to say, oh, we recycle in our town, and we don't want it to be the top flight anymore? End of speech.
Mr. Nephew.
Having thoughts all over the place here.
One
of them is that if our plan was that we only were going to find dual stream acceptable, then we shouldn't have put out an RFP that said anything else was acceptable. And that's kind of what I'm perceiving in some respects. The other thing is that the cost difference is quite significant. I agree with what Will was saying on that point. I think it's probably optimistic to look at the average in the staff report as the likely raw materials costs in the next couple of years, given what we know about the national and international markets where commodity prices are set. And so that could become an even bigger difference. There's a very valid point that Kathy's making about the education element and the importance of that. But I guess we have to ask ourselves, if we're spending $200,000, $300,000, even $100,000 less with one vendor, how much education could we do with that money, which is not going to be devoted necessarily to only how to sort your trash each week, but devoted exactly to more ways to reduce, more ways to repurpose things, more money that could be used for the city cleanup events, for the kinds of things that we're already doing. And so I guess it becomes a question of not simply the price, but if there is how much does that educational component cost, and is it irreplaceable by other means if you suddenly have a whole lot more money that you're not spending with that particular vendor? And so I think that these are some complexities. My biggest overall issue, and I want to say that I'm very happy with Eureka as a Maplewood resident. I've been very pleased with it. I can't see stopping dual sorting because I'd rather keep my trash separate that way. We've actually rebuilt our kitchen with new cabinets in a manner to accommodate the recycling sorting, and I'm going to keep paper separate from cans and bottles, even if I don't have to. But I guess the problem with all that I like about Eureka and what they've done, I'm concerned that we fundamentally have a flaw in the valuation equation, and it has to do just with the numbers on the revenue share business. Because to me, it's a counterintuitive result that somebody who has the bottom line best price under any likely economic scenario gets zero for 25% of the element of cost evaluation. And, and I don't know exactly how that was expressed in the RFP. If, maybe it could have been some different method of scoring. But to me, that's an equation problem that results in something that doesn't match up what common sense says should be the situation. And that makes it very hard to believe in the way that the rankings have been done. So I actually have a question for staff about this, which is to what extent, and I guess from a legal standpoint, whatever, if there is any, how binding are the numbers of that evaluation process? Are they in any way? Is this something where we are in any way constrained because we put out an RFP and said we're going to have this scoring method, and then if the council says, well, we don't really care for that scoring method,
It's a little late now.
is there any reason that we have to go with the highest scorer as far as the order of attempting negotiations?
And we're looking at Mr. Cantrude to share some wisdom.
Mayor and Council, I'll revisit some of my comments from before. I don't necessarily think that this is something you have to award to a low bidder or the best deal in this case. It is a specialty service, so therefore you're not constrained by some of the contract requirements that cities are. That being said, if you're going to use that criteria, I would always just reference any comments you have for whoever wins by stating that they were the most responsible or most responsive bidder in your opinions. And obviously you've got a lot of different criteria on which to base your decision on who to go with. So obviously price is something you're grappling with, as is some of the comments regarding the environmental side of recycling. So I wouldn't worry necessarily about who scores most in what. This is really about your evaluation. We came up with this. We had an outside consultant come in and work with the city about setting up the RFP itself. So a lot of time and effort went into this, and no system's perfect when you're talking about evaluating things that, it's apples and oranges, dual stream, single. So you got to deal with that, and in fact we did go back and look at those numbers. I was involved in a conference call, Bill Prefer scratching his head trying to figure out what the numbers meant, and we spent a lot of time getting this to you in this form. So that's why I think the bidders are here to answer your questions, and we'll go from there. But short answer to your question is no.
Mr. Lanas.
It's simply based because there's enough subjective and objective space in the RFP so that you can interpret and provide opinion. It's not based on like a sealed bid and there's a bid opening, lowest bidder wins, right?
No.
Arguably the RFPs went out, and I don't believe that the other entrants, if you will, got a chance to see anyone else's entry. Okay, so it was all closed in that sense, and then they were evaluated based on what was submitted. And whether you want to do 1 to 10 or assign points or letter grades or colors of the rainbow, something had to be done to rank them, and that's how we came up with this system for the consultants anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry?
That was
It was just warming up.
piggyback. Just
Okay.
a piggyback. I think Ms. Yingling mentioned that Maplewood has become, at least by many other municipalities, as a leader in terms of its green initiatives, and certainly it's difficult to argue against Councilperson Juniman's passion, because I certainly think that there is an ideal or philosophical difference, I think, that she and I have, and that is we both believe in the same ideals, but we have different ways to get to it. And so I don't necessarily agree with that if we choose a different route other than what's being recommended by the ENRC, that we're somehow being disingenuous to the city's commitment to green initiatives. And so that is where I would probably differ a little bit. I think the only piece that I would say is that the reputation piece is really of credit to this commission, certainly to Dale and to Ginny and the other members of the commission that serve on it. And we've learned a lot from them. And their level of expertise, I think, is not to be outlooked in this process. And so I would just simply say that as we move forward for a staff recommendation, that any perhaps disagreement with the NRC does not mean that we don't value their service.
Mr. Copeland?
The question, if all this stuff gets recycled, if there's no market for some of those materials, what happens to them?
Trash haulers trash them. Eureka's
Are
talked
you going
about
to take
it.
the crack at that, or?
Mayor, Council, could you
Varies.
repeat the question? I didn't quite hear all.
Of all the stuff that gets thrown in the recycling bin, a certain amount of that stuff, if there's no market for it, what becomes of that material?
Depends on the vendor.
It ends up going into an RDF plant or a landfill, or depending on where you're located and some of the contractual agreements you have, Mayor, Council, with the county you live in and stuff. But it doesn't get recycled, and that's the term we're bantering back and forth, the residual. That's the amount in that particular sort that doesn't end up as a product elsewhere.
And then, so then there was a comment about when it does go into one truck and then gets sorted out later, some places do it manually, some do it through automation or whatever, and one's supposed to be more effective than the other. There was that comment in the testimony.
One breaks more glass than the other, I think was the comment.
So it contaminates other recyclables, mainly paper.
So which method breaks more glass?
Mayor, Council, the automated method would actually break more glass, and as opposed to the dual or manual.
There you go.
Are you sure, Dewey? I mean, let me just say this. What you're saying is, if you take a thing only of glass and throw it in there, there's going to be breakage, but it's the contamination of the other materials. Is that right?
Mayor, Council, either of the two systems can break glass.
Right.
It's just, glass gets broken in a dual system as well, too. So it's just the handling that might, prove to, in the end, actually break more glass. But both systems have to deal with that, yes.
So, as we move forward here, and at the end of the night, in one way or the other, we'll be saying, okay, here's the list, start negotiations with this one. And if the residuals basically are everything that can't be recycled, wouldn't it be possible to take one of the other ones and with that educational component say, why don't we pick a few of the things that can't be recycled and get some information out to our homeowners and say, don't put that in your bin?
We've been trying to do that.
Mayor, Council, yeah, certainly we can, staff can work with whoever the actual vendor is to educate our residents, yes.
I mean, if we just let them throw whatever they want in there, then they're going to throw whatever they want in there.
Mayor, Council, it speaks to the philosophical part of the whole discussion on the dual versus single.
All right. Ms. Juniman.
I'm just curious about all of us sitting up here. What do you think the education piece has involved so far? Educating residents about what? This is a quiz to see if you've read your stuff.
Let's see, any chance that would be recycling?
I'm